There are over 15 different Legend of Zelda games, whether you're talking about the ones for the Nintendo 64, the Game Boy Advance, the Game Boy Color. Who would have thought that a video game franchise would be so good that it didn't matter which console you chose? Generally speaking, these are some of the greatest video games of all time, which begs the question of how would you rank these games? So we went to our resident Legend of Zelda expert from Boston, Massachusetts, Mr. Ryan McNulty, who's going to be guiding us through this audio and video companion piece where, if you're watching this on YouTube, we actually have a tier list that you can actually check out. And if you're listening to us on the road or at home or in the bathroom, don't be afraid, because we are going to guide you through this entire experience and another exciting episode of A Cast of the Past, which you can check out every single Sunday. I already talked about you, Mr. McNulty, but people are going to hear your voice probably more than they've ever heard in the podcast. So Keith Poshik from London,
Hi.
Ontario. He's a guy. I'm a guy.
I'm just
Juan
kind of
Villas.
here.
We're the companion to the person that's just really going to make this happen.
We're
So-
like
Keith's
the
like
train
Navi.
tracks of the spirit tracks.
Well, you gotta be
that
like the
is-
companion. You're one's Navi, and you can be Midna. So
Okay.
you know,
why not?
Can I be Tingle? I'd rather be Tingle.
Am I Navi
Really?
because I'm annoying?
Yeah. I want that
listen.
green bodysuit and some balloons, baby.
Fair enough.
Man, but what we have here right now is that there's an awesome website called Tier Maker, which basically, guess what? It allows you to create tiers. And because there are so many The Legend of Zelda games out there, Mr. McNulty, as an opening statement, when you think about the console versus the handheld ones, generally speaking, which ones do you tend to favor?
I love me the console games, and that's really where I did fall in love with Zelda. But in later years, I've definitely come to appreciate a lot of the handheld ones a lot more. So today we're going to be focusing on main series games, or what they basically consider the main series games, so no Link's crossbow training or anything like that. And Keith, there actually were 2 Tingle games that came out, but I don't think they
know.
He
Really?
was so unpopular in America, I don't think they ever released here. So yeah, we're not gonna be touching those. No CDI games, none of that business. Sticking to the core games here. So let's just kick it off right now. So we're going in like semi-alphabetical order, and we're going to start big. We're going to start with Breath of the Wild, which I'm throwing straight up into S tier. So we're starting out real hot here.
So
Breath
we
of
have
the Wild-
different tiers.
Yep, go
So
ahead.
let's actually explain that.
So yeah, S tier is like premier, cream of the crop, amazing games. We've got, yeah, exactly. A tier is what I consider to be a really great game, but the flaws of the game do like hold it back a little bit. B tier are, pretty solid games, but not the best. C tier, we're getting a little bit weaker, but still definitely worth playing. And then D tier is pretty much like you can skip these and you're not really missing anything.
Do you have a lot of Zelda games on the D tier list?
Not too many. There's definitely a common theme, so we'll get there with the D tier games. So back to Breath of the Wild here, S tier game. So people might say, hey, Breath of the Wild, it was amazing. Everyone loved it when it came out, but it definitely has some flaws, right? A lot of people criticize that the dungeons are on the weaker side. There's not a lot of memorable boss battles, things like that. But what Breath of the Wild does, it does so well, and that's give you the freedom to explore in the way that you want, how you want. A lot of the puzzles, there's way more than one way to solve them. So you just, the world is your oyster in Breath of the Wild. I know one of the game reviews said it best, where it's a game that never tells you no. You see something, you're like, oh, I want to get that.
true.
And you can go climb that mountain and get whatever it is you were looking for. It's like I said, there's weaknesses, but what it does, it's so incredible. And I don't think there's been a game that has really just like reinvigorated me into playing single player video games like Breath of the Wild has. I felt like a kid again playing this game, and going back and playing it again, I had a ton of fun recently. So Breath of the Wild is definitely a solid S tier for me.
And it just took a lot of risks when you think about the previous Zelda games that we got that really held your hand. This one kind of just took you all out there.
Yeah,
so.
it definitely took a step out of that Zelda formula that they followed for so many years, and it really paid off. And sales of the game speak for themselves too.
It really did, and I've never agreed with the critique that the dungeons are lackluster or whatever. Like, if you look at the dungeons as the 4 divine beasts, I guess, but that's not the game. All of those shrines are little micro dungeons, and in my opinion, that's some of the best the Zelda franchise has ever been. I love them. I love the fact that you can go on YouTube and look at 45 different ways how to solve the same puzzle. It's great. Like Ryan said, the game just doesn't say no to you. It's definitely an S-tier game.
Definitely.
All right, so moving on to Four Swords. So this was a little game that was on the GBA, A Link to the Past, and it's a very small, short multiplayer game. And this is going in the D tier. It's very short. It was a test, right? Later on, we get Four Swords Adventures for the GameCube. This seemed to me like just a little pilot to see, hey, how would a multiplayer Zelda work? It's not that cumbersome to set up. Obviously, you need someone else with a GBA and that copy of the game. I think you need a link cable too. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
I could
it's
be
not
wrong.
Cumbersome at all to set up.
No, well,
And
just
expensive.
wait till we get to Four Swords Adventures. Then we'll talk cumbersome. So yeah, it's really just nothing you're missing. The only thing it really has is the story. Like, it's part of this Vati boss. He's a part of like these Four Swords games, but it's like the middle chapter, so you're really not missing much. So yeah, totally skippable. Moving on to, sure enough, Four Swords Adventures. This is also going in the D tier. A lot of people like this game, and this is one of those Zelda games that I tried to play with friends, and I played solo because you have the option. You can control all the links yourself.
Really?
If you want to. Yeah, you can do
Sounds
them
like a nightmare.
Yeah, you can do them in formations. Believe it or not, it's better to do it by yourself than when you're like, hey, come on, get over here. Let's solve this puzzle. And he's off smashing pots. And you're
Did this come out before or after Wind Waker?
This was, I think it's after. I'm pretty sure. But anyway.
I can fact check.
If you want to set this up, if you want to play 4-player, you know what you need to do? You need yourself a Nintendo GameCube or I think a Wii. You need at least 3 of those GBA to GameCube cables and 3 GBAs to hook into it.
Oh my god.
And yeah, and I think
This came out long after
Yeah,
Wind Waker, by the way.
Yeah, I think one person can use a GameCube controller. It's a nightmare. The game's not that great. It's better than Four Swords, but I won't spend any more time on it. Totally skip it. Okay, Legend of Zelda, the original, I am putting in the C tier. Now, people might be like, oh, this is where it all started, but I'm kind of looking at these games from today's standards, right? Do they still hold up? And The Legend of Zelda, really, I mean, its roots can be seen all the way up to Breath of the Wild with just having that freedom and everything. But you feel its date very much so. The controlling the sword where you can only do that forward stab, it's really brutal. And some of the enemies are pretty annoying to fight, and it's very cryptic, this game. So if you get through this game without a guide, you are a hero. But yeah, it doesn't hold up to today's standards, but I respect obviously everything it meant for the series.
It's got the historical component, but generally speaking, I try going back to it, especially when you had the NES Classic and things like that. And whereas with A Link to the Past, we reviewed that, and I love playing it. With this one, it's just like, it doesn't stand the test of time for me.
It's true. Just because something's the first doesn't mean it's the best. Example, Terminator 2 is a way better movie than The Terminator.
Yep.
True that. Moving on to Link's Awakening, we're going to put this in C tier. Now, I know that is going to offend some people. A lot of people really love the Game Boy Color games. And
this is the one that's being remade in the next couple of months, right?
Exactly.
Okay, just making sure.
And I think that will certainly help its score. But Link's Awakening and some of the Game Boy Color games, They also have not aged particularly well, not in the aspect of the actual dungeon design or even the combat or anything like that, but it's really just the switching the items and everything where you have to. I find myself getting annoyed by having to pause like every 10 seconds. If you think like Iron Boots in the Water Temple in Ocarina is bad, that's what Link's Awakening and the other Game Boy Color games are like a lot, and it does get a little annoying. And they are challenging games, and they really emphasize the puzzle aspect of Zelda. And like I said, they're still enjoyable games worth playing, but you definitely feel their age.
So just as a quick recap, you have in D, Four Swords Adventures. You have the original Zelda, and then Link's Awakening on C. And then we have Breath of the Wild in S tier. So, Ryan, those A and B tiers are feeling kind of lonely. What do you want to fill them up with?
We'll get there eventually.
Oh boy.
So now we're going to A Link Between Worlds, and this is actually going up to S tier. So
God, what a
nice.
great game
Yes.
A Link Between Worlds is. This is my favorite Zelda game ever.
Yeah, A Link Between Worlds is essentially in the style of A Link to the Past, a sort of a reimagining, although it's really considered a direct sequel. But this game is, I think, 2D Zelda at its best. It has amazing puzzles. The combat's really fun. The gimmick of being able to go into walls to solve puzzles is one of the coolest things that they've ever put in a Zelda game. Like you feel so smart when you solve some of these puzzles. It's just super well done. If I was to recommend anyone a 2D Zelda game as their first one to play, it would absolutely be A Link Between Worlds. It takes the greatest parts of A Link to the Past and kind of modernizes it, and it gives you almost more freedom, I think, with the second half of the dungeons. So just an absolutely excellent game. I did fight between A and S tier with this game for a while, just because it derives so much from A Link to the Past. But after replaying it, I'm like, no, it stands on its own as just a great S tier game.
I'm going to say you made the right decision there. I would even argue that you can see links between this game, no pun intended, and Breath of the Wild, where this was really the first Zelda game, at least that I played, that gave you the freedom to go kind of do whatever when it comes to dungeon. Like in A Link to the Past, just to use that as it's the closest example, you kind of had to go through, okay, here's dungeon 1, here's dungeon 2, here's dungeon 3. In A Link Between Worlds, you can go do whatever dungeon you want, and that's kind of where the openness that eventually led to Breath of the Wild started.
Yeah.
And that's why I love it so much, because it's not just a linear path. You can kind of go do whatever you feel prepared for, and then once you finally get done it's the best feeling in the world.
And I
Yes.
think it's interesting because I think in a time where people maybe were more obsessed with like more 3D Zelda games, yeah, this one is 3D technically in graphics, but it does follow the A Link to the Past formula. And the fact that this came out in the 3DS and people put it up there as one of the best Zelda games out there lets you know, like, yeah, it's good to have your Breath of the Wilds, but you can also revolutionize based on, the mechanics that were introduced in the Super Nintendo.
Absolutely. So now, sure enough, we're going to go to A Link to the Past, which is also going to go up into S tier. So you might be saying, oh, well, if, A Link Between Worlds did everything almost better, I still think there's a lot of merit to A Link to the Past and everything it did. And this is really probably, aside from the original, the most important Zelda game to exist because it created the Zelda formula. And the fact that this game is over 20 years old at this point, I believe, and it still holds up amazingly. It feels just as smooth as any other Zelda game, and it's a little bit more combat heavy than A Link Between Worlds. So if combat's more your thing and really difficult enemies and bosses to deal with, then A Link to the Past might be a little bit more your cup of tea. And again, something we talked a ton about in our Link to the Past podcast, it's a game that really rewards you if you know exactly what you're doing, where people can beat this game in like less than an hour. So it's just an overall incredible game and so much unforgettable music. I just love it to death. So absolute S tier.
We talked about it extensively on the podcast, so anybody that hasn't checked that out, I mean, we're called a cast of the past. So I think that game sort of influenced our name. But let's keep going then.
All right, so next up we have Majora's Mask, which is going up in the A tier. Now, Majora's Mask is a personal favorite of mine.
I'm just
However,
gonna sit back on this one.
yeah, however, I can recognize that it is very flawed in a lot of ways. And people might say, hey, Ryan, they came out with a 3DS remake.
Or,
and
hey,
sure,
Ryan, it's a bad game.
I refuse to hear that. But so they say, the 3DS remake, they fixed a lot of problems. And they did. But they also added some problems by making some bosses really dumb. And then the Zora swimming, they messed up. And they messed up Deku jumping on lily pads and stuff. So there's really no perfect version yet. But Majora's Mask, it's one of the darkest Zelda games. It has so much personality. And I just love the story. I love the time mechanic. It's like Groundhog's Day. You have 3 days to save the world, but you can't do it all in one time cycle, so you have to keep resetting the clock as you slowly make progress. Everyone in the town has their own schedule, and it's just so cool. And there's just a few hiccups along the way, there's this cave with all the mummies, and you have to basically go on a collection quest, and there's no point to not looking up a guide to do this part because it's so stupid and it's just a huge waste of time. So you just look up the guide. So there's a lot of clunky things along the way, but when it's good, it's phenomenal. So Majora's Mask, A tier.
I know there's going to be a lot of controversy with that one because I've never played it because I honestly thought it was an alternative version of Ocarina of Time. So it wasn't up until I think it was you a decade ago that told me, hey, Juan, that's not the same game. It's actually a different one. But I feel not tempted to go back to it because it has just that highly mixed opinion among the
it's
Zelda
very
fans.
tough, and I would never. I said A Link Between Worlds. I'd be like, hey, that's the first 2D Zelda you should play. Majora's Mask should never be your first 3D Zelda. I'll put it that way. Okay. Next up, we got Minish Cap, which is going into the B tier.
Game
Minish
Boy
Cap,
Advance.
Yeah, Game Boy Advance. It's the only, I guess, Four Swords is also a Game Boy Advance one, but the true original GBA Zelda game, Minish Cap is, I would say, I love it. Don't get me wrong, but it's not super original. It's probably the most by the numbers Zelda game there is. There is the little mechanic where you turn into the small Minish Link, and that is cool. And I do really like what they did with that, and I do like the kind of Wind Waker art style brought to GBA. But it didn't really take any chances. It's probably the safest Zelda game to ever exist. But it's still fun. So
What do you mean
play
by
when it
that?
first came
That
out?
it's the safest Zelda game ever?
I don't think it did anything ground. You know what I mean? Breath of the Wild took chances. And
So is it just
Majora's Mask took chances. It's just a safe by
is
the
it
numbers.
Here's the dungeon, here's the boomerang, here's the hook shot, here's the bow style thing?
It
Okay.
doesn't really do anything too wild.
Interesting.
All right. Next up, Ocarina of Time. It's going up into S tier. So, everything in the world has been said about this game. There's, it's just one of the most solid Zelda games. The pacing is perfect. There's maybe a little weird progression moments, but other than that, the story's fun. Every single dungeon to me in that game is fun and worth playing. There's not a single part of that game where I'm like, oh, I have to do this part. Even the water temple.
That about I was gonna say, you're really gonna say that about the water temple?
I am, because I've played it after you kind of get over your first time in the water temple. When you revisit it, if it hasn't been that long, it's really not that bad.
How many times would you say you've beaten
100
Ocarina
jokes
of Time?
there, and I'm gonna say 0 of them.
Yeah.
It was only a few times up until I got the 3DS version a couple months ago. And now I've probably beaten the game 7 times or something like
Nice.
that. Which to most people is not even that much, but it's super solid. Obviously the first N64 Zelda game, and it still holds up great. The 3DS version, absolutely the best way to play it because you can get through the cutscene so much better, and the items are a lot easier to use. So that's the version to play 100%.
something
I
that's
can
commendable.
agree.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. No, you go.
No, just something that I wanted to say is like, think about the fact that in the S tier right now, you have a game for the N64, Super Nintendo, 3DS, and Wii U / Switch. So think about just how many video game franchises would give anything to have so many of their games be considered among the top of the food chain. Yet with Zelda, it seems like generation after generation, they always find a way to just be able to maintain that quality.
That's just what's so great about Zelda, that it's one of the few franchises that has never really had a dip in its entire basically in its entire lifespan. I mean, yes, there have been some consoles where you don't have a great Zelda game, but every single console has had a good Zelda game on it, and that's what makes it so great. You're not going to hit a home run every time. And I just wanted to quickly say about Ocarina of Time that I do agree that it belongs on the S tier list. Like earlier we talked about how important A Link to the Past was for Zelda games bringing up the Zelda formula. I would say that Ocarina is equally as important, that if it did not exist and it wasn't as great as it was, Zelda would have died on 2D. It never would have made the jump in the way that it did, and Zelda wouldn't be around today. We would be talking about this huge nostalgia factor about how great those games were back then, not the fact that on the current Nintendo console we're still getting great Zelda games. So with no Ocarina of Time, there would be no current Zelda, at least in my opinion. And that's why it's an S tier game.
Great. Couldn't agree more. So now I'm going to do what I kind of hate what people always do in videos, and that Zelda videos, and that's pair Oracle of Ages and Seasons together, but I'm going to do it anyway. So Ages and Seasons are both going to go in the C tier.
These are both Game Boy Color games.
These are both Game Boy Color games. They came out not too long after Majora's Mask. So they do kind of have little like callbacks to Ocarina and Majora's in them, which is cool. And these are, if you're looking for super puzzle heavy, challenging games, Oracle of Ages is a very good game to play. But again, similar to Link's Awakening, the item switching, very daunting puzzle-heavy dungeons where if you leave a room and come back, a lot of times you have to like do the puzzle over again. So they can be very daunting. But if you are up for a challenge, these games are pretty tough. And like sometimes the thing is, a lot of times I'm just stuck. Like, what the hell am I supposed to do? Sometimes progression is a little obscure. But they do some really awesome things. Ages, you kind of go back and forth in time. It almost takes the Ocarina puzzle solving to the next level with the whole time mechanic, where you're kind of in world jumping back and forth between time to solve puzzles. Like, put this seed in front of a ledge and then go forward in time, and it grew, so you can now climb the vine. So it is pretty cool with that. And then seasons, obviously you're switching between winter and fall and everything to solve puzzles. And then if you beat both games, you get a cool little ending between both of them at the very end. It's like a really cool finale.
Oh, nice.
But again, they have not aged super well. I'd love to see them remake it for the Switch like they're doing for Link's Awakening, because I think they could be so much better if they were modernized a little bit. But again, just the Game Boy Color clunkiness kind of holds them back for me personally.
Never played them, so I can't really talk about those.
Yeah, same here.
All right, so moving on to Phantom Hourglass, the first DS Zelda game. And this is going in B tier. I pretty much I enjoyed Phantom Hourglass. I think some of it definitely had some pacing issues, as well as difficulty issues, where you would go out and you would do the normal temples in the game, and they were like super freaking easy, and then they have this central dungeon that is really difficult at times, and it's like a stealth mission half the time. And each time you solve a dungeon outside the world, you have to go back to do more of the central dungeon, but you have to replay through the part you already played through. And of course you'll get items to get shortcuts, and eventually you get like a checkpoint. But every time you beat a dungeon in the outside world, you're like dreading going back to do that central dungeon.
That
Wasn't
doesn't
this
sound
the one
fun.
game where you needed to use a stylus to move around?
Both DS games, you have to use a stylus. It's fine. It's really not that bad. And it's kind of cool to like mark things on your map too. So it's really not as bad as everyone made it out to be. So still definitely playable and fun games, just definitely some problems with like certain like aspects of the game. So that's why it's in B. Now my favorite one to crap on, Skyward Sword is
Here we go.
going in the C tier. And
Oh, okay.
like as you can see, Skyward Sword is like it's a little distant from the other 3D Zeldas.
Just a bit.
And don't get me wrong, Skyward Sword, it did story pretty damn well. It's one of the best stories in any Zelda game, and it has one of the best characters in any Zelda game, and the character is Groose. And it's like he starts out as like the bully, and then he kind of becomes an actual lovable character by the end. So they did a super good job with his character and the story. And there's some great dungeons in this game. The Ancient Cistern and the Sandship dungeons are both some of the coolest dungeons in any Zelda game. And there's some other moments, mostly in Lanayru Desert, where they have some amazing music and just the music matching with what you're doing in the game. It was phenomenal. But a lot of this game, the motion controls, I was not a fan of. A lot of times you're just waving the thing around, hoping to kill this Deku Baba, and it just won't slash the right way. And then you're kind of locked into these 3 areas that you have to like drop down from the sky to go to, and they're not like interconnected in any way. So the game just feels very separated. And then you have to go through those 3 sections. You could really feel the padding in the game where you just kind of rehashing the same areas over and over. And like there's a part at the end where they just like the last time you go through those areas, it just feels like filler. And so there's just a lot of moments in that game where it's just a big letdown, and you're getting stopped every 5 seconds for dialogue that you're just breezing through because you're just like, at this point you're like, I don't care. Like your companion Fi is super annoying, always interrupting you constantly. So you're kind of losing that gameplay flow. So it has some great things about it, but it just has so many problems.
Speaking of filler, how do you feel about 8-hour tutorials?
Yeah. This may actually not be as bad as some of the other Zelda games, but the beginning tutorial is long.
Something I wanted to say there is like, you haven't brought up Twilight Princess yet, but this is around the time where I got kind of bored of Zelda games because I felt like with Twilight Princess, it was way too dialogue heavy. I wasn't a big fan of like the darker style. I know maybe some people liked it at that moment, but when Skyward Sword came out, and this is like Wii U time, this is Wii time, I should say, it felt like that for me was maybe the weakest generation as a casual Zelda fan. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm right, but for me, it's just like I felt like I was scared of what the future of the series would be like because I felt like they were kind of just touching up things, but they weren't really trying to innovate on some of the things that I saw. And as a result, I kind of took a long break. It wasn't up until Breath of the Wild, I want to say, that I really just went back, and that caused me to go into other Zelda games again.
Yeah, I think Skyward Sword was like the misstep that needed to happen to bring us A Link Between Worlds and Breath of the Wild. And now we're like,
that's a good point.
Zelda has found its way again. Because Breath of the Wild was pretty much the exact opposite. It was everything Skyward Sword was not. So, there you go. Skyward Sword in the C tier. Now we can go to Spirit Tracks, which is going to join Phantom Hourglass in the B tier. Spirit Tracks, I love the music in this game, and it's super cool. It follows, like, Wind Waker, Phantom Hourglass, Spirit Tracks are like their own little trilogy. It's one connected kind of story over a long period of time.
I didn't know that.
And it's got this cool train mechanic, and they do the central dungeon thing again, but they make it more interesting, and they don't make you repeat the old sections, I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly.
Because that's a really cool idea, but if you just have to go back and repeat it, it sounds like the worst thing ever.
Yeah.
So it's like they improved it in that aspect, but it's also kind of annoying. Like the stages are like, you're still kind of dreading them a little bit. So that's why they're kind of like on even playing field. Like there's parts of Phantom Hourglass I like better than Spirit Tracks and vice versa, but they're both kind of solid games, that both I put in the B tier. All right, Triforce Heroes. This is the one I just recently played. It's relatively new. It's going in the D tier with the other multiplayer Zelda games.
What do you think they do these? Because it always seems like these for the fans sort of fall at the bottom, yet they kind of go back to them. Because here we have Game Boy Advance, the GameCube, and then the 3DS. Why do you think that is?
I think, they just wanted a way for people. I think people do want to play. When you hear Zelda and you're like, oh, multiplayer Zelda, it sounds so appealing. But then when you think about like how can you really craft that? And I just don't think they've found the answer yet. And I think they're experimenting. And I give them credit for doing so. At least they released a solid 3DS game before they tried the experimental one. And yeah, Triforce Heroes, they tried a different approach than Four Swords Adventures, and it's just as kind of meh, So I give them credit for continuing to try. In the single player one, I have to like pick up all those little dudes to like they don't follow you around to play as all three, so it's a little more annoying to switch between everybody. But you do this kind of like totem pole thing where you all stack up on each other to solve puzzles. It has some charm to it, but it's kind of like level select design. A lot of these are all like, it's not like an open world where you explore. It's like, oh, level 1, level 2 menu type of deal. So it just doesn't feel like a great Zelda game. So yeah, all the multiplayer ones, they just don't do it for me. So I stuck them all in the D tier. All right, moving on. We got Twilight Princess, and this is going up in the A tier.
Okay.
So Twilight Princess, a lot of people like to crap on this game because it copies a lot from Ocarina, but so many Zelda games copy from
Let's
Ocarina.
talk about A Link Between Worlds and A Link to the Past and talk about why that's not a bad thing.
So much like I mentioned before, I say I put games in the A tier that are great games, but there's some missteps, and definitely the beginning of the game, you get those wolf sections where you're killing the bugs, and it just really interrupts the flow of the game. Later on, once you're able to kind of freely switch between Link and the wolf, it actually feels cool, and I do enjoy it. But that first half of the game is a little clunky. Like you mentioned, Juan, like the tutorial for this game is pretty brutal. I know they've cleaned up some of the stuff in the HD remake, like there's less bugs you have to kill for the wolf sections and whatnot. So they did try and clean things up a bit. But I love Twilight Princess. I love the dark like tone to it, similar to Majora's Mask. The character Zant started out really badass, and then they kind of screwed him a little bit at the end there, but he's still cool. There's some amazing dungeons in this game. One of my favorite dungeons ever is like Snow Peak Ruins, which is like this mansion. It's like this frozen mansion, and it really feels like you're in a mansion when you're going through it. It doesn't feel like, oh, I'm in a Zelda dungeon that's dressed like a mansion. Like, they did a very good job of making it feel like this castle-like mansion thing. It's super cool. There's also like Arbiter's Grounds is another great dungeon in my opinion. There's just some really cool moments in this game. It has one of the coolest like Ganon fights too.
Yeah.
So it just does so many badass things that I love it.
Did you first play it on the GameCube or the Wii?
I've only ever played the GameCube version. I didn't want to deal with motion controls, and I also heard that the Wii version, they like mirror flipped it. So like literally text, like Hylian text is actually like backwards and stuff. Like,
yeah,
because
wasn't Link using the other hand
The
in the
wrong
game?
because
arm,
Link is
Yeah.
traditionally left-handed. So for the motion controls, so like Skyward Sword Link and Twilight Princess Link for Wii, they made him right-handed, so that's why they mirror flipped Twilight Princess.
Which I feel discriminated against as a left-handed person.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Although Breath
What are
of
you
the
saying?
Wild-
You got no motion sensei?
Yeah, Breath of the Wild
Well, I
Link,
don't,
even
but-
though there's no motion controls, Breath of the Wild Link is right-handed, but whatever.
So they're rewriting history.
Yeah.
What hand is he in the Zelda encyclopedia? That's the real
I'm
answer.
sure they would say left-handed. I think
Probably.
canonically he is left-handed. All right.
So we have 2 games left here. We have Hyrule Warriors in the tier list that we have on the website, but I'm assuming we're not going to be counting that.
Yeah, we're not going to be doing Hyrule Warriors. It's that's a side game, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's also like a C game. It's all right.
I've
It's
never
a
played it,
Dynasty
but
Warriors game.
I was going to say I haven't played it, but I've played Dynasty Warriors, so yeah.
Lubu.
All right, now Wind Waker. That is going in the A tier as well. This game, I hold it near and dear to my heart. One of my favorite Zelda games. And so, why A tier? I think and again, the HD remake definitely cleans up some problems. But
I was going to ask that. Are you considering the GameCube version an A-tier game or the Wii U remake an A-tier game? Or are they both A?
I actually haven't played the HD remakes. I have them now. I have them in my possession to play through, so I will.
I hate you.
But I am looking at these kind of in the scope of like how they are when they came out and how they hold up, but also still kind of looking what I know of the HD re-release. I still don't think like fixes all the problems I would have to make it enough to make it S tier anyway.
Because I would say Wind Waker is the only game that the changes are significant enough that it could move the tier between games, because they do a lot of work in that HD remake.
I did hear that, but as I go through it now, I will say one thing in particular that really holds back Wind Waker is the dungeon count and the dungeons themselves. I think that Wind Waker, I love the story. It has one of the best stories. I love the graphics, especially the HD remake version. It looks phenomenal. The dungeons, I thought to myself, what's your favorite Ocarina dungeon? You'd be like, the Forest Temple. What's your favorite Twilight Princess dungeon? Snow Peak Ruins. What's your favorite Wind Waker dungeon? I found myself struggling to feel like any of the dungeons in the game are
That's fair.
Amazing. Yet everything else kind of really comes together. Like when you go down below the ocean to Hyrule, it's so amazing. It has one of the best Ganons, or it has the best Ganondorf in any Zelda. Like he feels like a real person. They humanize Ganon in this game. It's really cool. But it's weak on the dungeon count. The dungeons themselves are solid, but none of them there's no like S tier dungeon in this game. And also we know about the whole Triforce quest at the end where you get to find the pieces. A lot of people hate that. I know they cleaned that up in the HD version, but it's still it's not like the most fun thing to do in the world. So Wind Waker does a lot of things right. Maybe has one of the best soundtracks in the series, if not the best. But there's still those things kind of holding it back.
I actually never had a chance to play Wind Waker. Economically speaking, I think was the only reason I wasn't able to. I always wanted to rent it, but it was always out. It was just that popular game that everybody was trying to just rent. And by the time I think I was able to get it, I was just kind of over it and just playing newer games.
Yeah.
So
it was actually the first Zelda game I beat on my own.
Oh, nice.
I got a lot of help. I was young when Ocarina came out. I got a lot of help from friends. So, yeah. All right. Now, Zelda 2. A lot of people like to crap on this game. Zelda 2 is going in B tier for me. Now, a lot of people are like, this game sucks, whatever. Because if you look back, it's like, okay, we had the original Legend of Zelda, and then A Link to the Past really copied that and just took it to the next level, and then the series took off. And people kind of forget about Zelda 2. They kind of dismiss it. People play it for like 10 seconds and they're like, this game's too hard. I'm never going to play it again. If you give this game a chance, it is actually damn good. Maybe it's not the best Zelda game, but as a game itself, for an NES game, this is actually a really interesting game. It has RPG elements that you really don't see in Zelda traditionally, like leveling up, and you can increase your sword attack power, your magic, your health. So you can actually grind in this Zelda game. If you want to just fight enemies for a while and grind up your levels, you can do that. And the combat is way more interesting than the first Legend of Zelda. So it's side-scrolling when you're in dungeons and encounters and things. So it's way more RPG-like than almost any other Zelda game. So you'll fight these knights that are stabbing in two different directions, and you got to hop and slash at the right time. It's almost Dark Souls-esque.
That's cool.
Where you're having to figure out the patterns of these enemies and attack them. In this game, it's hard as hell, and I may pick a time to talk more about this game later, but if you actually played through and yes, I used a guide because NES was cryptic as hell. Give me a break. But I
the
played
games
it
were built that way.
Yeah,
they were built to sell
Yeah.
Nintendo powers, so
I
that's not a
initially
bad thing.
dared
Hotline.
I dared one of my friends in college. Like, I made a bet, like, to see if he could beat this game. And as he started to progress, and I saw what he was doing, it inspired me to play the game more. And then I went and beat the game, and now it's I actually really enjoy this game. So, still B tier because it's definitely not on the same level as, like, Twilight Princess or Majora's Mask or anything like that, but it's way better than anyone wants to give it credit for.
I think it's all a matter about franchises not being afraid to take challenges, because obviously this game is visually and from a gameplay standpoint very different. So when you think of a Zelda game or a game involving Link and you see this, your brain's like, no, like that's not what I'm looking for. But it's fine. I think that when series, I mean, you look at God of War, which may seem like a weird example, but then you have the God of War games, but then you have the God of War game on PS4. They're all technically about the same characters, but they play differently. That doesn't mean that one of them is better than the other, but guess what? You can be in the same world and enjoy that world differently. So the same way that we have your Ocarina 3D Zelda games, but you also have your A Link to the Past type Zelda games, the top-down, you can have these. And I feel like they shouldn't be afraid to do small foreign games like that. I mean, you talk about Cadence of Hyrule, which we can talk about that down the line, but don't be afraid to take chances with the series. But Mr. McNulty, first of all, congratulations, man, because this has been all about you, baby. Keith and I are just bonuses here.
I thought my voice was going to give out for a bit there, but I rallied.
So could you give us the recap about your tier list? Because we can say Cast of the Past, really. It's your tier list.
All right, yes. So starting at the bottom, in D tier, we got Four Swords Adventures, Four Swords, and Triforce Heroes. Yes, all the multiplayer games. In C tier, we got Skyward Sword, The Legend of Zelda, Link's Awakening, Oracle of Ages, and Oracle of Seasons. In B tier, we got Zelda 2, Minish Cap, Phantom Hourglass, and Spirit Tracks. In the A tier, we got Majora's Mask, Twilight Princess, and Wind Waker. And in S tier, we have Ocarina of Time, Breath of the Wild, A Link Between Worlds, and A Link to the Past.
Now, Keith, I got a question for you.
Yes.
I hope you're ready for this, because we have reviewed A Link to the Past on the podcast, and there's a good chance we'll talk about either the Game Boy version of Link's Awakening or the remake that's going to be coming out on the Switch. But removing those, based on Ryan's list, is there a Zelda game that sort of piques your interest for us to review down the line, whether it be in a month or in a year?
I have two answers for this for very different reasons. Just because I've never played it, I think the Zelda game I'm most interested in trying based off this tier list would be Zelda 2. Just because it's so off the beaten path from the formula. It's something I've never even touched. I'm curious to give it a shot, and even though it is on the B tier, that was still some good praise for it, and it left me interested enough to try it. The game that I can't wait to get to one day is Majora's Mask, because I look at this tier list, and for the most part, I agree. I admit I haven't played every single game on here, but from the games that I played, I agree with Ryan's assessment, with the exception of Majora's Mask. And there will come a day where it is myself versus Ryan when we discuss Majora's Mask, because I do not like that game. I don't think it's a good game. So we'll see how that goes, I guess.
Am I going to be pressured to having to decide whether I like it or not? Oh, no. I don't like this. I'd
like you to have an opinion about Majora's Mask, yes. But
yeah. Play
as long
it
as it's a negative
decide
one.
for yourself.
Yeah, but everybody listening and watching, please let us know, out of all these Zelda games, first of all, do you agree with Ryan's list? We should be saving this on Tier Maker, so that way everybody can see this properly. But I agree with you, Keith. I feel like I would love to see and play Zelda 2, just because it's one of those games that you always hear people make fun of. But it's like, give it a shot. Even if you don't like it. I love to play bad games. I own a lot of PS2 games, and even if they have like their things that are not so great, I like being able to say they took a chance, they took a risk.
Yeah.
So that would be
I'll
maybe
say
one.
this. I think a lot of people, like I said, just kind of dismiss the game. A lot of people that played it have probably never even beaten it. And that's why, like, shout out to the guys at Zelda Dungeon. They did a great rankings a couple months ago. and they definitely rated Zelda 2 pretty high because they're really great at all these games, and they've actually played through the game. So I encourage you, if you've dismissed it in the past, give it another chance. It's hard as hell, don't get me wrong, but
just use
give it
the
a chance.
guide. Don't put yourself through misery.
Video games are
okay.
about having fun. Yeah, don't be afraid to pull up a guide and have it just take you along the way. But as we close off here, first of all, this is the first time that we did this tier maker idea. Ryan, you were the one that came up with it. You didn't come up with tiers.
Yeah, I didn't come up with this.
Yeah,
but
you created this, Ryan. Take all the credit. But everybody, just let us know. Personally, I had a lot of fun just being able to hear you react. Obviously, this is a Ryan-heavy episode because out of the three of us, you're the one that's really experienced pretty much all the Zelda games out there, including even just some of the bonus ones. But we can talk about whether it's movies or anime characters. We talked about Dragon Ball Z, possibly ranking characters. So if that's something you would love to see, don't be afraid to reach out to us at Cast of the Past on social media, whether it's Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook. You can also send us an email at castofthepast@gmail.com. And especially with episodes like this, you can go to our Discord, which is a castofthepast.com/Discord, and you can roast Ryan. And then we can just sit back and enjoy it.
If you're as much of a Zelda nerd as I am, send us your tier list for Zelda games. We'd love to see it.
Absolutely. And the most important thing, if you enjoyed the podcast, consider leaving a 5-star review, whether it's on Apple Podcast or Stitcher. It makes Keith smile. And Keith has a beautiful smile, but it's like that danger smile that you feel like you're going to die right afterwards. But he can change that to a beautiful smile filled with teddy bears and just cups of coffee. So up until next time, this has been Ryan's tier list for the Legend of Zelda franchise, and we'll definitely be back with a lot more and another exciting edition of A Cast
To the
Pass.
So proud of you, Ryan. So proud of you.
I did it.